This is a little ZBrush test for a character where I wanted to make a head to print out the individual parts for stop motion, or at least a test for that. So the first 2 or 3 parts of the video are just a very basic build, and obviously I've just sped it up. If you're used to ZBrush or get new to it but getting familiar with it, there's very many ways that you can make a character. The main ones being Z-spheres. You can bring in your own from another 3D program and just sculpt over the top of it. You can use existing tools, whether it be the primitives like this sphere that I've just chopped in half here, or one of the major ways that I do all the time now is just Dynamesh. And as you can see there, I've just split a sphere, mirrored it across, joined it to what will be the legs, Dynameshed it in, and with very few tools, just quickly rough up the shape that you want. And as you can see there, with very little work, I've shaped up the rough outline of the legs. For this project, I didn't actually need a body. So to be fair, it probably would have been easier just to ignore this bit and just go straight into the head. But then I kind of wanted to just get some kind of a shape going and understand the form of the whole character. So the bit that you're seeing is just roughing out the body. So I've just Dynameshed off the basic shape, added the legs, Dynameshed in the feet. Now I'm Dynameshing a couple of cylinders in. I use this a lot, which is I just work on one side and just keep using mirror and weld. And as you can see, it's very quick. You could mask off, drag out the arms. You could use Z-sphere arms. I've seen a lot of people do that, and just Dynamesh them in, like you've just seen, and then fill in the joints. There are endless amount of ways to do it. One way that I am starting to use a lot is to just do blocking out with shadow box, which gives you front, side, left, right, up, down, and just draw the shapes, and you end up with the model from those masks, which again, that's probably one of my favorite ways. This way, I don't see Dynamesh as a tool anymore. Really, it's just part of what you do. So you don't really say it's not like box modeling or poly modeling. It's Dynamesh is just a function of the modeling process now to a lot of people, and I think me included. So I just Dynamesh along the way, and of course Dynamesh just averages out the polygons. So let's go on to a head one, which is the more important bit of this session. So I've just appended in a sphere. I'm going to do a lot more with this head, so I'm just going to do a basic character stylized head, and I wanted it to have a decent mouth shape in it, so I can do a lot of articulation on the mouth. And I wasn't going to do a face replacement part of it, so I'm not going to split it into 2 parts and do the upper and the lower, which I probably will do for a later session. This really is to just show how quickly I can rough out characters for a tutorial that I'm writing at the moment, and it's all part of a bigger course actually, which is called Clay to Digital, which is just what I've been doing lately is teaching a lot of people who are from the either stop motion or the film industry how to break into digital sculpting from traditional sculpting, and these sort of exercises help to explain a lot of what's going on. Helps to show a lot of the tools, helps to show some of the interfaces that I use, certainly for training, and where the similarities are really between things like clay and digital. So obviously there's some similarities, but then a lot of differences. So the Dynamesh, for example, you can't really think of an analogy where you can redistribute, because obviously with a big block of well, if it was stone, for example, there wouldn't be anything even remotely like it. If it's clay, you can by just adding on chunks of clay. So as you can see, I'm just really just roughing out a couple of minutes worth of work to block out the rough shape that I want: mouth, nose, eyes, forehead, ears now. And again, quite often sometimes I use pre-made ears. Sometimes I would just do what I'm doing here, just pull them out of the head and mask off. And as it's just a stylized character that I'm wanting to do, it's quite straightforward just to pull them out and re-dynamesh. Which is what you can see. I do a lot of smoothing, do a lot of work that then gets smoothed down. So I'm just really after just bulk and form. I don't even use a lot of things like flatten at this stage. Flatten comes for me quite a bit later. So I'm just looking at bulking everything up. So at least I've got something to work on later down the line. So I'm putting a little bit of a fat roll in there. Little bit of work inside the mouth just to make sure I've got a nice big mouth bag. I'm going to put some teeth in there. It's one of the next bits. Head shape's completely out of the way, so that needs a bit of work. So I'll just leave that now because I've got it blocked to the point where I could throw some eyes in it. So I've just got some stock eyes that I use. Just chuck those into the head, and now I'm just going to quickly knock out the shape of the hands, and then move on to the detailed bit of this tutorial, which is the head. So you by all means skip ahead if you don't want to look at this. I'm just blocking out a palm. I'm only going to do 3 fingers. It's very stylized, and sometimes I would just mask and then carry on pulling out, but what I've done here is just chosen to use insert cylinder and insert sphere. Excuse me. The insert cylinder for the kind of joint part between the knuckles, and then the knuckles are the spheres, and then I'll just dynamesh it as you see, and then it gives me lots of volume to sculpt onto, and just quickly change it to the shape that I want, and then keep re-dynameshing and changing it around. So I'm not looking for anything too complex here, so obviously very quickly it gave me the form that I want, so I'm going in with a flatten there and just cleaning off all of the ridges and bumps that have picked up along the way. I think with this character, once I've kind of done all the work that I want to do with the head, which is the important part of this sesh, then I might go back and really start to refine the hands and the body. At the moment, for what I'm going to do, it's just nice to know it's there to give me an idea of scale. And the head is actually quite stylized on this one, so as I keep saying. Oh, excuse me. So it's nice to get nice big hands and big long spindly arms. Something that would animate really nicely. I won't be doing any of the layer work that I'm going to do on the hands. It's all going to be on the face. So I just need to do enough with the hands to give me something to use as a bit of a reference. So as you can see, I'm very quickly roughing out, and I'm only using clay build-up. So clay build-up is the build-up tool, and then a combination of move and flatten, and maybe a little bit of pinch here and there, but not much. Now it's almost there. It's almost at the shape that I want. I think the whole process so far is only about 20 minutes, something like that. It's speeded up to this rate that you see here. Just let it cook for a little while longer, and I'll move on to the next section. I didn't put any fingernails in here. Didn't want to do anything of that level of detail. Again, I might do it later. Might get it poly painted later. I quite often do like to put the fingernails into the mesh. Don't really like doing it as a separate and popping them on. I want a little bit stylized there, as you can see. I just inflated the fingers, ends of the fingers. So let's just pop them on the body. Remember, mirror and weld. If your mirror and weld isn't working, then just you can see with my interface there, I have mirror and weld and mirror right in the middle at the top because I use it quite often. So I'm always modeling on one side and then just hitting mirror and weld. And if you find you've modeled it on the wrong side, just hit mirror. And again, I've pulled out mirror from the deformations menu down in the tool panel, and I've put it bang center of the training screen that I use here, simply because it's a tool that I use all the time. I can't be bothered shortcutting it. So just looking at the scale of the feet, just making them a bit more stylized, making sure they're good from all angles. So the idea would be is in kind of I think the character I was designing originally was going to be in a old pair of red pajamas, like an old-fashioned cowboy. So let's have a look. So what we're going to start with, so let's paint up the body. So again, as I say, just some red colour, really suggestive more than any kind of accuracy. So just putting some dirty stains on his red undies. Don't even know what they're called, if I'm honest with you. So I'll have to look that one up. Bit of dirt, a little bit of fake ambient occlusion, I suppose, and dirt. That looks nice. Okay, everything's turned off. Now we're just going in, looking at, making sure we've got the the eyelids all sorted. All I did with the eyelids was just a couple of shapes and just duplicated it up and down. And I definitely wanted, even though I wanted the same subtool, the same tool, and separate subtools at the start, I wanted the eyelids to be separate, so I'd never dynamesh them in, because I want to be able to use things like move topological on the eyelid itself. So we're moving into painting now, so all I wanted to do was a colour wash. So I did a darkish pink underlay colour, and then I just went in and added in some flashes of flushing with the pinks. And what I tend to do quite often is what a lot of people do is that they put like blues and reds where they know the blood's close to the surface, and blues where it's thin, like the scalp. Not so much on this character. I kept this very, very simple and stylized, and just kept smoothing the colour down. Just going over and over my own work. I mean, the character came together really quickly, so again, it was only, I think the whole thing is a couple of hours work, even with all the facial shapes that we'll get to later on. So it's not a big deal to get these kind of things done. And it's a great experience, obviously, just doing a couple of characters like that. So as you can see, I'm just using really standard paintbrush, painting in the areas that are occluded, so inside the mouth, under the ears, all those kind of things. A bit of stubble, so thought I'd add a bit of grey in to give him that nice little cheek stubble. I might knock it back a bit later on, but it's for this point it was great just to indicate where the hair would be bluey grey. Gives him a little bit of a thuggish look. And there we go, I've just turned wax preview on, and that just gives you a little bit more of a translucency for the skin, a little bit more subsurface scattering effect. Threw a bit of pink in the cheeks, a bit of a ruddy nose and ruddy cheeks, and a little bit in the ears. That looks good. The eyes were a standard set of eyes, as I say, so I just pulled them in. So let's just add a couple of teeth. So the easiest way to do teeth, I usually find, is just to throw in a gum, which is a ring. Just mask off the back and delete it, or use a clip brush and clip rect. Or this way, just mask off the bit that you don't want. Basically hide it and then delete it. And then close the holes, so you've got our donut. Again, you could use initialize. Just take a ring and just knock it down to 180 degrees. It's just how you roll, really. It's dependent on what dependent on how you're feeling and what you want to do. There's lots of different ways that you can approach it. So that was the gums. It was just 2 semicircles, so two halves, and top and bottom duplicated. Now I'm just going to throw in some blocks for the teeth. So literally starting with a cube and just cleaning it down. And now we're just working on the texture a little bit there, so it's going to look, needs to be a little bit wider, and we need to obviously paint it up like a tooth, which will come next. And all I wanted to do was have, again, these wouldn't be the teeth for it to be finished. They're simply just for me to have something to model over. and when I do some of the facial shapes, it shows quite nicely. It shows much better when you've got the teeth to pull around, and you'll see through some of the little videos the actual jaws, the cheeks pop through. It's because the teeth are jutting out, so there's a little bit of work to do with that. So there you go, there's the incisor in. Now we're down to the canine, which is obviously sharper. So there you go, adds in a little bit of sharpness for the third tooth from the right. Duplicate. I think we need to make this one a molar. That's great. There we go, a few more teeth. Onto the molars. And then all I did for the bottom teeth was just flip these around, so in a moment you'll see I'll just flip the whole thing around and flip it over, and then scale down the ones that don't fit. Again, I take a lot more time. I just did this for this exercise really, just to show, and kept them as totally separate subtools, so when I do the pose morphs or the poses, they don't react at all unless you go onto a separate layer and move them. See there, I'm just making them a little bit more like lower teeth. I love the toy plastic material. I just always apply that or a variant of it to anything that's glossy at all, or anything that's wet skin or inside a mouth. Or okay, so let's get the head, hide everything else. Obviously we're not going to make the head a toy plastic, so as I change material, because I haven't poly painted any material onto the head, it's changing as I change the material, which is no bad thing at this stage. So just tweak some of my settings in the skin. So we're just appending in the teeth, scaling it down. The scale I use there is obviously there's the scale, but there's a scale down in deformation. And again, I pull it out and put it on the menu bar at the top. I use that all the time because I just find scaling with the transpose line, I just find it a bit clunky really. So I made a bit of an error with the teeth there. So what I do is I cheat. Instead of dealing with it properly, I just hide one inside the other. And then we're nearly done with this one. And then we can move on to the last few bits and bobs. The fun bit really, which is what this tutorial was all about. So we've got the head and we've got some teeth and eyes. So we're going to now use layers to define some of the shapes. So if that's the base shape, we now go to the layer panel, hit the plus, hits a little record symbol, or gives you a little record symbol, which means you're now working. So anything that you do now will be recorded as a change. That's why it's important really that you have a really standard flat neutral face to start with, and only do your changes iteratively. So now I've literally just done one called smile. There's a little rename button, and then as soon as you finish, turn the record off, and then go on to your next one and make another one. So just mask off this one. This is going to be like almost like well, not a scowl, but pulling the lips back really. And this isn't a pose that I would really want. It's really just to show what it's like when you pull your lips back and the teeth that he's got bared. So this one looks quite fun, but it's not actually that functional really for me. It's not a thing I would do a lot of. Okay, they're working nicely, and the smile's working nicely. Okay, next one. So this is one of the ones that I always find when I'm doing the actual final models and I'm doing the models for animation, the ooh is crucial to get right. See how it pinches at the corners? And that's a real toughie to get right if you've got a wide mouth. If you've got a 180-degree mouth like a frog or something like that, it's virtually impossible to do an ooh without pinching. So what you see in a lot of solutions is that they close the mouth all the way along and just do the ooh in the middle, so you get the split still stays there. Here's a bit of a sulky lip. So again, the masking helps there. The two things I use to doing that kind of a change is usually the move topological, which respects your topology when you're moving, or I just do like I did there really, which is mask off, mask blur, and then move one over the other. And then if there's any kind of issues, I'll just pinch it or use the pinch brush. So next one, pretty standard one of the eyes closing. Now you see why I like to have the separate eyes on a stylized character. So I'm using move topological. It's the same model, it's not a separate subtool, but it's actually respecting the topology, so it'll only move the eyelid lower and upper, so it does look like a stop motion eye, and I do quite like that. I've started to do that a lot more lately. Let's do the second eye. Notice there that I'm doing each eye separately, and I'm recording it, turning it off and recording the next one. So what I usually do in these is do them separately, and then I'll do them together, so I can have one that controls both. You probably might not need that, but obviously it depends what you need. Again, what's also good sometimes is to do an intermediate one. So do one that just goes halfway down, and you might have to save that out, depending on what you're going to use these for. If you're doing stop motion and you want to 3D print these, you'll be saving hundreds of these. Right, brow down. This is a lovely one. And I don't think I do it in this session, but later on I do a full scowl where the great thing about layers is it records everything from color to shape. So you can bring that brow down, and then you can put crow's feet in the corner, carve them in with the damp standard brush, and the layer records that. So as you turn it on and off, it actually, as he drags the brow down, you get the crow's feet back, which I love. To be honest, it looks great. So that one's done. Just checking them. All working. Probably a little bit too exaggerated, but bear in mind. There we go, just testing it out. Eyes, eyebrows. It's great because you could do all sorts of facial expressions right here in ZBrush without ever going to even without getting the rig finalized. You can see if your character works. You can try, if you're working with an art director, you can show different shapes. It's such a powerful tool, the layers. It's used all the time by people doing this kind of work. This is one that's interesting, is the colors. So you can go a bit crazy really with this sort of thing, and actually flush up the colors. You can make him look jealous. You can, as I did there, flush the cheeks. You can flush the lips. You can basically do everything. You can even run paint down his face if that's, should you wish. You can make veins pop out. Oh, this is looking good now, so I'm feeling quite confident about it at this point. The shapes are looking lovely, and it's great that just in a couple of hours you can have a character that you're actually doing those kind of shapes with. So, and then when you've done that, just right there in ZBrush, just literally start with the base model, and then just move all of the sliders and just test them all, and it records the forward history for you, or records the history anyway. And you just record the forward history. So as you see there, the head's spinning around, which is it's not anything that you would be doing yourself. It just calculates that based on where you're working on. So as it's spinning it around there, I'm trying all different shapes, trying all the different sliders and seeing what's popping through. As you see there, the eye popped through, so that's one to remember. Here I just pushed it down towards, I blushed it down to a green, so I think I made it into a goblin next. So this is halfway between the man and the goblin. Notice the ears are getting more pointy, the mouth's getting a bit more aggressive, head's getting more aggressive, and there we go, it's gone all the way out to goblin now. Still the same model, just with changes going from onto the layer. And then on the way back now, so the ears are coming down, the yellows, the greens going out. See the eyes pop through there, so that's one to remember. And there we go, back to our normal guy. And that's how I use layers for doing this kind of preparatory work.